Hi, welcome back to another episode of Zuck It Up. My name is Brandie Zucker, and I am the host of the Zuck It Up podcast. Wow. Today, I wanted to just come on here and talk to my higher self, and talk about what it means talking to your higher self, with your higher self. What even is your higher self? So the idea of that your higher self, that basically there is a version of you that exists, not and there's a version of you that exists outside of you, but it's a part of you, almost like God. I think we're all fragments of God and the universe, and there's a version of myself who exists on this reality simultaneously when I'm 80 years old. Since time is an illusion, there's a version of my past, my present, my future. It's all coexisting at the same time. So when I talk to my higher self, I'm talking to the reality that exists when I'm 80 years old. I'm talking to the 80-year-old version of myself who's been through what I'm been through right now. So, I guess to my 80-year-old self, will I heal my body? Will I heal my body? Will I feel free? Will I dance? Will I experience love? Will I create a life for myself that I love? Will I stop worrying about what other people think of me? Will I allow myself to be seen authentically by whoever I want to see me? Will I stop fearing what other people will think of me? Will I communicate how I'm feeling without fear of rejection? Wow, I think fear of rejection has played a huge part, and I think because of my fear of rejection, I've tried to control how people see me, and I've projected my fears onto them so that way I could control them, so I wouldn't have to fear being rejected by them. And it hurt me because the people who I projected my fears of rejection onto couldn't tell that to me. Perhaps I wouldn't have been able to understand at the time, or whenever that would be. But I think the important thing is that I understand that now, and that I've overcome my fear of rejection. And I think it's through that fear of rejection, which is why I haven't put myself in places, scenarios, situations, and maybe auditions and things like that in the past because of my fear of rejection. But I think by having that fear of rejection from other people, I rejected myself. And I think I didn't mind at the time if I rejected myself, because I knew I could run away from myself through habits that numbed that fear. So we can't run away from ourselves anymore. We're all we have. There's no more excuses. There's nowhere else to go but within. There's nothing to fear. Today, I asked myself, Do I like myself? And, well, the short answer is yes. The long answer is there were a lot of shadows that came up when I asked that, and basically I said in that shadow work process, I was like, no, I don't like myself. I don't like the fact that I run away from myself, and I don't like the fact that I feel bad about myself, and I don't like the fact that I look this way. I don't like the fact that I project onto people, and I don't like the fact that, like, I don't have, like, a group of friends right now. I don't like, there are so many things I don't like about myself. So no, I don't like myself. And then I got to the root of it, and I said, and I came to the conclusion that, well, it turns out that I do like myself because I'm understanding my shadows, and I think in order to understand your shadows, you have to like yourself to some degree. I think if I actually didn't like myself, then I wouldn't be bringing all of this subconscious beliefs up to the surface, so that way I can set it free. So that way I can actually understand that I do like myself, I love myself, and that it's okay, you know. Do you like yourself? Yes, I like myself. Yesterday, I went on to a TikTok live. There's this guy I follow, and his name is Coach Monarch, and he is a channeler, and he was doing these channels on TikTok live, and he was channeling different people who paid him $44 to do a channel for a question that they ask. And one person asked a question about not having clarity with somebody, and his response to that was, can you sit with that? Can you go within and visualize that person's higher self and talk to that person's higher self? Because energetically we're all with us. So when you tune into somebody else's higher self, then you can get the answers and clarity that you need from that person who hasn't given you that sense of clarity and that closure that you feel like you need in order to move on with your life. So if somebody leaves you unseen, you can tune in to that person's higher self and ask for the closure that you need so you can move on with your life. You know, I spent a year and a half dwelling over this healer that I saw, and I wrote a letter about him, and I burnt it, and I was just doing everything I could to release his thoughts from my life. And it turns out that I was afraid of him seeing me for me. And I was afraid. I was afraid. I was like afraid to share my actual thoughts with him because I was too afraid for him to not respond to what it is that I had to say to him. And no matter like what kind of work I did on my own, the only way I was going to resolve that was telling him how I felt. So I told him everything that was going on through my mind. And I think through that, I let go of my fear of being rejected and my fear of being seen by people. especially people who I'm scared of being rejected by. And it turns out I'm not scared of being rejected by anyone anymore. No, I'm not scared of being rejected by anyone or anything anymore, because I don't reject myself anymore. I allow myself to express myself to whomever I feel an urge to express to. And because when I fear expressing myself or fear of rejection, then I'm rejecting myself for not allowing myself to say what I need to say what I feel like saying, so I just keep it in. There's no keeping it in anymore, you know? It's not healthy to keep your feelings inside of you and not. I think when it comes to telling people how you feel, it's a risk. I mean, is there anybody in this world who you don't feel safe to tell them how you feel? Is there anybody I don't feel safe telling how I feel? I think there's people in my life, and it feels pointless to tell them how I feel because they'll never understand. But the people in my life who would understand, that's who I fear telling them how I feel, because I know that they'd understand, and because they understand, if they were not to take my feelings the way I wanted them to, then it's just something that's, I guess, in the unknown. And like, as I felt myself typing all of this out, I'm like there was a thought going through my mind, like there's no way I could sense that person. And then I caught that thought, and I'm like, that's not me talking. And then I acknowledged that thought, and I'm like, I'm free. And then I just sent it, and I sent. And then that actually inspired me to send another message to somebody who made me feel really unsafe. And I was holding these thoughts and feelings of unsafety in for a while because I was afraid of how they'd respond, because I didn't want them to make me think or believe that there was something wrong with me. Because the truth is, I know that there's nothing wrong with me. So that inspired me to send another person a message just expressing how they made me feel, and I pressed send. Their response afterwards didn't mean as much to me, but I think just the idea of me being honest was the most important part. And, my whole life I never expressed myself in this way before. And it's just like a learning process, a necessary learning process. I think life is filled with decisions, and sometimes you're placed with 3 decisions. Decision A, decision B, or you can't decide between those 2 decisions, so you just don't make a decision until you know, which is also a decision. So for instance, I was deciding, I did a 3-day fast, and on my 3rd day of the fast, I was like, do I go to the Passover Seder? Do I stay here? This may be my grandmother's last Passover Seder. I thought the Seder was on Saturday, but my sister texted me like at 3 p.m. that asking me if I was on the way, and I said no, I thought it was Saturday, and I had planned what I was going to do that day instead, just like staying in my own energy and reminiscing on all of these changes I'm going through as I'm shifting perspectives and realities and shedding layers and just spending time with myself and in my own energy. And this was the first time where I didn't let the opinions of my family impact the decision that I made. And I think through honoring myself and my boundaries and just the sole fact that I just wanted to spend this day in my own energy, I honored myself, and it was really hard. It was so hard to honor myself. I'm like, why is this hard to honor myself like this? And it turns out that I grew up believing that I'm only a good person if I honor my family and what people expect of me and want me to do. It's important to put other people before yourself. And by putting myself first, I let people down. Because I made my family upset by not showing up, it made my old self believe that I wasn't a good person. And then, not only am I a good person for taking the time to stay in my energy that day, but I'm a good person who knows what I need and who knows myself. And I think through this knowing, I'm teaching them that it's okay to honor your needs, and that by honoring your needs, that's what makes you a good person, because you know how to take care of yourself and your energetic hygiene and your well-being. And I think if you can practice setting boundaries and saying no, then the money, the love, the relationships you crave in your life are going to come. And that doesn't come until you have that relationship with yourself. Everybody in your life is a reflection of the relationship that you have with yourself. So if you have a shitty relationship, excuse my language, if you have a frustrating relationship with your partner, well, that can only mean you have a frustrating relationship with yourself. You know, we're not just like, we are a person. We are a whole person. And our personality and our sense of self does not depend on anybody else other than ourselves. So when the person that you're with is frustrating you, what is it about yourself that's frustrating yourself? What are you allowing to let frustrate you? What questions can you ask yourself to understand why you feel like you can't move on, and why you feel like there's no hope for change, or why this person isn't changing? It's because you're not changing. You're refusing to see. You're refusing to acknowledge the parts of you that aren't healed. And I think as long as we live, we're going to have shadows. We're going to have parts of ourselves that aren't healed. And I think we're all unique, and I think we all have different ways of handling those parts of ourselves that aren't healed. For instance, some people meditate for 12 years on top of a mountain. That's what their soul believes will heal them, and so they do. Some people start podcasts, and maybe that's what they believe will heal them. Some people become Lady Gaga's backup dancer, and that's what they believe will give them the healing that they need. That's what they do. That's what they're good at. That's what helps them relieve them from the other parts of their lives that, I mean, if my identity is Lady Gaga's backup dancer, hi, my name is Brandie, what do you do for a living? I'm Lady, okay, well, I think the first problem is asking the question, what do you do for a living? I think people need to stop asking, what do you do, what do you do, what do you do? It's such a superficial question. No, I don't want to be Lady Gaga's backup dancer. You son of a gun. You know, the guy who I watched on TikTok, Country Monarch, he said that he felt some distorted energies when he saw the videos of Gaga's performance at Coachella. But I think that those distorted energies were part of the art, and I think I viewed her performance from a higher perspective, and because I'm an artist, I'm not a channeler, so I think the truth is that perhaps we don't really know the truth, whether like when it comes to how celebrities and music are made, especially really big celebrities like Gaga and Beyonce. I mean, some people say it has to do with the Illuminati and dark energy forces that wants to make sure that they stay famous and they don't lose their audience. But the truth is that, I mean, it's definitely like, I mean, the people who say that, like, they have their own truth, but also I have my own truth, and from what I see, I think that they're talented and they're creative and they inspire me, and I think they're fearless. And I mean, every time I see Gaga doing interviews, she always has beautiful things to say, and she always has super like valid messages. I mean, I don't know like how much of that distorted energies and Illuminati stuff is part of it or whatnot, but I focus on the part that I resonate with. And I think if we all bring awareness to what we resonate in our lives, then I think we'll become more in alignment with what's important to us and why we're here on this planet. You know what I mean? So, if I were to receive an answer from my higher self right now, the question I would ask is, do you think I'm ready for a death, another death of my ego, and to enter into this life? I mean, I already had one ego death in my life, and that was when I partook in a mushroom ceremony. on the Sacred Feminine Retreat in Costa Rica. And I believe that I faced a lot of fears I was holding on to, and the mushrooms really showed me that I was very attached to my ego and this sense of control I had, but my higher self knew that I needed to let it go, and my higher self was with me that entire time. And there were so many times in that ceremony where I didn't know if I was like, I think I feared how I was going to come out the other end, and I feared the person I was becoming and shedding. You know, it's really like scary when you actually have an ego death and experience that true dark night of the soul, where you're like, has my whole life been a lie? What's important to me, what has been important to me my whole life, has that been a lie? And I think what had been important to me my whole life was just being something and showing myself that I think when I thought of like the idea of being a successful person, I thought of Beyonce and Lady Gaga. So I'm like, if I don't have a career like Beyonce or Lady Gaga, or if I don't make something of myself, if I don't make something of myself, then I'm nothing. And that couldn't be further than the truth. Because we're not nothing. We're everything. Everybody in your life wouldn't exist without you to perceive it. We're everything. You know? There's nothing to fear anymore. Another thing that Coach Monarch said was that when I asked a question in the TikTok live, and I said, how long have you been a channeler? And he said his journey started when he ran away, kind of technically from home, left his family, and lived in his car. He said that he could only manifest living in his car because he wasn't safe. He didn't feel safe enough in his energy to manifest anything else. And there was a point in my life where I thought that maybe I should live in my car. And then I realized, and he helped me realize, that I, Brandie, unlike him, I can learn through his mistakes, and I can make myself feel safe enough in my energy to manifest a living situation for myself that's a lot better than living in your car. I have the ability to manifest that for myself. So then I wrote it out. I'm like, well, if I could manifest anything, maybe I'd love to, dance again. I'd love to be able to dance as much as possible because it's what makes me feel good. But I think before I continue this, I think another thing that's important to note is that I couldn't become a professional dancer because when I was dancing, I was doing it from a place of fear, and I mean, for most of my life, my nervous system was very hectic and not calm. Ever since I've been doing breathwork every day to learn how to regulate my nervous system. And through regulating my nervous system, I've been learning how to feel safe in my body and safe to use my voice and safe to tell people what's going on in my mind. And ever since I've been regulating my nervous system and feeling safe in my body, I've been learning how that there's nothing to fear by sharing what's on your mind to whomever you feel like it. I've learned that there's nothing to be scared of by being bold, by saying whatever you want. long as you're not hurting people, you know. And because I'm safe enough in my body, I don't need to manifest living in my car. You know, I can manifest my own beautiful house anywhere I want. I can manifest my own beautiful apartment anywhere I want. And I think that there really is truly nothing I love more than taking dance classes and dancing and performing. And that's why I always felt called to New York. But then half of me wants that, and half of me just wants to be immersed in the nature. And I think right now I feel called to be immersed in the nature, to understand that I too am as free as the nature around me. And I think it's very easy to connect to God when you're surrounded by Mother Earth and nature, and you're not influenced by all the energies around you. I mean, New York City, that's a very, there's many energies all around you all the time. There's not much nature. You know, if I were to move to New York City, it would have to be the ideal conditions for me. And I think that would include, you know, living by the park and having a place that has a good, nice open space and plants and a lot of light. So, and that way I can feel at my sanctuary. I just need a place where I can create a sanctuary, and it's not going to be my car. I'm not going to have to do that. You know what I mean? In case so the current place I'm staying at is my father's ski condo in New Jersey. And I'm very, very, very grateful and lucky that I'm able to stay here right now. And I've learned so much about myself and my shadows through being able to stay here. And I think that everything is going exactly as it's meant to in my life. Everything is going exactly how it's meant to in your life. And I think it's so cool that I can document my whole healing journey, my whole life journey through this little podcast, through these videos I'm making. I feel like everything that I'm telling you guys, everything I'm sharing here is like really what I would be saying to a therapist, except the therapist, I mean, that wouldn't work for me because I do respect what they do, and I do respect their job, but I know that in myself, we all have an infinite amount of wisdom that's available to us anytime. And I think I knew that within myself, if I wanted to identify with that infinite wisdom that's available to me at any time, I need to spend time with myself, and I couldn't be asking my therapy for that wisdom. I couldn't be asking a therapist for that wisdom, because in my opinion, that would be asking somebody outside of myself for validation or something that I already know within me. And I think what it is with me is that I already had the answers within me, so I needed to just come to the fact that I am really connected to God, and that I have the answers within me that I need, even when it does seem unclear. And I think each day I'm becoming more and more clear on who I am, what I want, and what I'm destined for. And I think also that we are who we are, and I think by allowing ourselves to just be and exist and listen and still the mind, we receive the answers and downloads that we want. And what I want is clarity to obtain all of the abundance I am. clarity to see the abundant person that I am, clarity to open my mind and my perspective to the abundant person that I am, clarity to bring up all the shadows to the surface to illuminate them to understand the abundant person that I am. I think our shadows are what blocks us from seeing the abundant people that we are. Knowing that everybody has this infinite source of wisdom, everybody has this infinite source of intelligence, and everybody in their own unique way has an own unique way of expressing themselves and doing what they love and just, I think some people just be, and I think through being, the clarity comes. And maybe talking is my form of meditation. Sometimes I meditate and I just observe my mind. I don't identify with my mind. I let the thoughts go, and I set intentions to be so still that I hear the whispers of my higher self communicating with me. Or sometimes I'll ask a question out loud to the universe, and I'll just sit with myself until I receive an answer. I was deciding whether I should go to the gym right now or sit down and talk, and I realized that I wanted to sit down and talk because I made an iced mushroom beverage, and I wanted my time to drink it before I go. So I'm like, okay, let's just sit and drink it. And then I said, do I want to sit and drink this in silence, or do I want to sit and drink this and talk about whatever it is I feel like it? And I think with me, talking is what helps me. We can only be silent for so long until the lion becomes unleashed. So, my lion has been unleashed. Do you know why? Do you want proof that it's unleashed? Because I am talking, and when I talk, without any expectations or no care what anybody thinks, then, therefore, I am unleashed. And there's no turning back. I just referenced the song Love Me by Brandie. It's on all music streaming platforms. Go listen to it, you son of a gun. I did a breathwork journey today, and I'm going to talk a little bit about my breathwork journey. So I was lying on my floor, and the sun was out, and I had my windows open, and I had thoughts just rushing through my mind, and I needed to scream, just like scream the thoughts away and let my soul rise through letting it all out, through not letting, because I felt like my mind was attacking me, and I needed to just shut my mind off by using my voice to become louder than my mind. Therefore, I gave out the biggest scream ever, and then the thought came to me. I'm like, oh, what if people think I'm in danger who are passing by? So then I started thinking, what's more important, me releasing and not caring how... I think what it was is that I didn't want people knocking on my window and disrupting my practice. So I shut my window. Because one time when I was at home and I did a journey, I was in my bedroom, and what happened was that my bedroom door was locked, and I also let out a scream my mother, she was in the house. I didn't tell her I was doing this. I didn't even know I was going to scream this loud, honestly. But what she did is that she was so worried for me. That's what it seemed like. She took a pin and unlocked my door from outside and took off my headphones that I was wearing. And she's like, "You need to stop doing this. I don't like you yelling." And I needed her to just leave at that time. So I wanted to make sure that kind of disruption didn't happen. So I got out of my breathwork and I shut the window and went back. And even though that shutting the window felt necessary for me, I felt like it did disrupt the flow of it in a little way, but I think I was still able to get what I needed, you know? So I got what I needed. Breathwork is so powerful. I think if you just do breathwork every day, breathwork is awesome because some people fly to countries and do plant medicines to see what it is that they're not seeing. But I think breathwork can also help you do that, and it's also a lot easier because you don't even have to leave your house. You can just do it whenever you want, you know? Okay, this is going to be a shorter episode today because I really need to go to the bathroom, so thanks for listening, and thank you for being a part of my journey. Stay tuned.